Aloha. Welcome to Abe Lee Seminar Sessions. Today, we're going to talk about the definition of a contract and the obligations on the signers of the contract. So a contract is a voluntary agreement between two parties. It could be the seller's agent and the seller, or it could be the buyer and the buyer's agent, or it could be between the buyer and the seller that sign a purchase contract. So contracts are everywhere, and contracts are meant to protect the process and to make sure that all the legal processes are going through and that there's no complications. So contract writing is very important, and we need to understand the definition of a contract and the responsibility of those that sign the contract. So it has to be between two, what we call legally competent parties. So the two parties, no matter who they are, must be of legal age, 18 or older in Hawaii. They have to be mentally sound. They cannot be mentally incompetent. And they cannot be drunk, and they cannot be under the influence of drugs, and they cannot be forced to sign a contract by one of the parties. So they have to be legally competent and be willing to do this of their own free will and choice, and there's no coercion, no undue influence, and no drugs or alcohol that might impair the mental soundness of the parties signing the contract. In a contract, there's usually what they call considerations. In a listing contract, the seller agrees to pay the broker a commission for selling the property. That's a consideration, the commission. In a purchase contract, it is the buyer making an offer, usually to the seller, saying, I will buy your house for your list price or lower or higher. So the consideration in a purchase contract is between the buyer and the seller, and it's a purchase price that is a consideration. In a property management situation, the seller is willing to pay the property manager a fee for managing that property. And usually it's a percentage of the gross commission or gross rental that's received by the broker that's managing the property, and the seller gets the gross amount minus the commission, and the commission is a consideration. So consideration can be cash, it could be coins, it could be stamp collection, it could be cars, boats, whatever. But most of the time, it is cash. But they could be something else besides cash as consideration. The contract has to be in writing. In most states, at least in Hawaii, we have what we call the statute of frauds. And the statute of frauds says that the contract must be in writing to be legally enforceable. The only agreement that does not have to be in writing is a lease, oral lease for a year or less on a rental of a property. So like say you're renting an apartment building or apartment or a house. If the rental period is a year or less, then you do not have to have it in writing. But we do not ever recommend that. And in fact, attorneys say, even if it's for 3 months or 6 months, legally you can do an oral contract, but it's hard to enforce because people forget how much down payment or deposit you put down. When is a lease over? And how much are we paying in monthly rents? So really, you need to have something in writing. So in almost all transactions, we would recommend that it be in writing, even if it's oral contracts that could be oral, less than a year, we don't recommend it. We recommend that it's always in writing. There's what they call express contract or implied contract. Express contract is what we talked about with the statute of frauds, where it's in writing and the two parties that sign the contract are legally bound to each other. An implied contract would be an example. You meet a friend at a party or at a function or somewhere, and you just got your license. And your friend says, hey, how you doing? Haven't seen you for a long time. What you up to? Oh, I just got my license, and I would love to see if you know anybody that wants to buy or sell a house, please let me know. And your friend says, oh, I'm thinking of selling my house. And so you, the brand new agent, get all excited and say, tell me where the property is. And you write down the address, and then you look it up. And then you do the research, what they call a CMA, comparative market analysis, and you send the information to your friend through email, through an attachment or whatever. Your friend looks at it, goes, oh, interesting. There's 10 homes that sold in this neighborhood for an average sales price of, say, $600,000. So now, this agreement that you have with your friend, it's all verbal. It's what we call an implied contract. So now the seller friend says to you, hey, I really like what you sent to me. Can we get together and can you list my house? Now, when you get the listing contract prepared and the seller signs the document, now you have an express contract that was implied. So implied contract means that, hey, there's nothing in writing, we're just talking. There's nothing concrete. But once you sign the contract, then it's an express contract, and it's within the statute of frauds that all the transactions must be in writing. So I hope you understand the difference between implied and expressed, and how the contracts switch from implied to an express contract, and who's obligated. So it's the buyer or the seller in a purchase contract, it's a listing broker and the seller, or the buyer and the buyer's agent, or the property owner and the property manager. And they all require contracts according to the statute of frauds. Thank you very much. Hope you learned something new.